Chris Scalzo here with
Matt Howell.
And this week on the First Run, we have a special guest, Wayne, out from... Wayne, where the hell are you now? You in Seattle?
Portland,
Oregon.
Yep.
Well, that's not Seattle, but it's definitely out west. So there's also a 3-hour time difference here, so hopefully that won't mess us up too much. I'm not sure how long the delay is. Doesn't seem to be too bad. I understand it won't be a 3-hour delay. I don't know how time zones work. So this week on the First Run, though, Wayne and I are going to discuss The Revenant, film that's just recently out with Leonardo DiCaprio. Maybe he'll get his Oscar this time. Who knows? Maybe talk about that. We're going to tell you what's coming up on Blu-ray and DVD this upcoming Tuesday. That's January 19th. We're also going to discuss Monster Squad. Last week we talked about Masters of the Universe, with Matt and I decided to get into our nostalgia picks to really see if these films hold up. Now, we all know Masters of the Universe is not a good film. It was more just, we talked about that because that was the inspiration for this list, this marathon, if you will. But Monster Squad, let me tell you, holds a place dear in my heart. I loved this film as a kid, so we'll see if my dreams and hopes and my memories have been crushed. We'll talk briefly about the Oscar nominations, which were released earlier today, and then finally, we'll tell you what our favorite films were of 2015. I have 10, but my co-hosts here may only have 5. They could have 7, 6, 3. I don't know. We'll figure that out as we go. Also, I want to take a moment as well. This is a big deal for me. We're not going to have any music for the opening of this week as well, in honor of course, my dearly departed David Bowie. I've been crushed and upset the entire time. It's been nothing but David Bowie music for me for the entire week. And, of course, today we find out that we lose Alan Rickman as well. Hans Gruber has passed on as well, so it's been a rough time. Anyway, all right, let's dispatch with the melodrama, and let's talk a little bit about The Revenant.
The only safe thing to do is track a new course back up on land.
Then what we gonna do? Sit out there like a bunch of goddamn ducks? You and your half-breed son get to walk on out? I'm talking to you.
The proper thing to do would be to finish him off quick.
He's to be cared for as long as necessary.
I understand.
Get away! Help!
What happened?
We did what we had to do. He was buried right.
All I had was my boy, and he took him from me, you understand? He's afraid. He knows how far I came to find him.
So, The Revenant. Leo DiCaprio, gentlemen, has had his fingers right around that Oscar, like Indiana Jones in the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Right? He's got his hands on the idol, and you think he's going to get it 3, 4, 5 times now, and it just slips through his grasp every single time. So Leo plays I don't even remember what the hell the guy's name is.
Hugh Glass.
Hugh Glass.
I actually had to look it up because I forgot to.
You've already earned your keep. So
yeah, there we go.
He's a tracker who is working with Domhnall. Listen, we're going to talk a little bit about Domhnall Gleeson later on today too. But so Domhnall Gleeson, Tom Hardy, and a pack of these guys are out there collecting skins or pelts, if you will, in order to basically have some money. And things go horribly, horribly wrong. And Leo basically has to find his way back to camp and then hunt down and kill the man responsible for the death of his son and the man who tried to kill him. This is Iñárritu's latest film. If you don't recall his work, he did Birdman. What was that, last year? Won an Academy Award, right?
Yeah.
Best Picture, Best Director. Michael Keaton robbed of his Best Actor award. That's my opinion. Gentlemen, where do you fall down on the Michael Keaton Oscar?
I did not see it yet on that.
Fair enough.
It was one of those movies that I wanted to go watch, and like I said, I've been sticking with more later or older movies, so it's in my list.
All right. Well, you can report back to us then.
Well, I'd have to say the opposite. I would say I saw Birdman, and he was very, very good in it, but I saw none of the other competition, so I guess by default, yes, he was robbed.
I appreciate your support on that. All right, so gentlemen, Revenant's got, it didn't seem to have the universal claim that Birdman did, but it still ranks pretty high in Rotten Tomatoes. I think it's sitting around 86%, maybe 82 at this point. So, I don't know. So Wayne, I guess this is for you and me at this point. I know you did a write-up of it, but Oscar contender, nominated for Best Picture. You haven't seen a lot of new films this year, so. But what do you think? What are its odds? Did you enjoy it? Is this some kind of revelatory experience that you went through with Leo? I mean, really, just share your thoughts with us. What did you think of the film?
I would say that I enjoyed the movie for the most part, as far as how it was put together. It was definitely filmed, beautifully. Like, just the scenes, everything, all that kind of stuff was great. The actors were great too. Leonardo DiCaprio, he did an amazing job. But you're talking about my write-up, I remember one of the things with the way I watch movies is I actually don't watch trailers. I don't read write-ups on the movies as they're coming out. A lot of times a movie will come out and I go, I never heard of that. What is that? And so, like, I go into the movies not knowing anything. Like, I know one was Sicario. Is that how you say it? The one that
Sicario, yeah.
Sicario, that's it, yeah. I went into that one. That was one of the ones where I spent 20 minutes trying to figure out if it was going to be a horror movie, action movie. I didn't have any clue where it was going or whatnot, So, with this one, it was the same thing. I did see something about screen. There was a screen cap of DiCaprio with the bear, like it was just a shot of the bear coming over him. So I knew it had that in it, and that was pretty much it. Like, that was all. A friend of mine out here was like, "Hey, you want to go watch it?" I was like, "Okay, let's go." And the only other thing I knew about it actually was that they released the Hateful Eight. They were going to keep it on 70mm for 2 weeks, and they switched it to 1 week because they were saying that they wanted to get it out before Revenant started so that they can get a bigger release before this movie, because they thought it was going to be a big contender for it.
Wow.
So those were pretty much the only things that I had heard about it. And as I was watching it, I'm also a big critic of CGI in films. If it's not used correctly, I immediately stick to it and kind of get obsessed with how bad it is or whatnot. So this one, the bear, obviously was CGI, but I was like, I thought they did pretty good with the way they did that and everything, but it's still, I don't know. Once I start noticing it, it doesn't let go for me, But the as far as when I was going through the movie, when I do my little write-ups and stuff like that, I become just like an idiot when I watch movies. I forget everything, just kind of watch. Like, I don't, there's no, like you were I watched your thing about Hateful Eight, and you were saying how you hated that they had Channing Tatum listed on the credits. I went in, didn't even remember that while I was watching it. Didn't even occur to me that he hadn't shown up until the end of the movie, so it's like one of those things. So my in my little write-up that I wrote, my big thing was that I was under the impression, since the way it was filmed and in reading later the other day about how it was filmed and stuff, how they were trying to be super realistic, and they were like chasing snow and trying to be out and use as little Hollywood as they needed to actually get what they wanted to get and stuff, which made me appreciate it a little bit more. But my thing about it was that I had felt that it seemed a little too far-fetched, in the sense that there's only so much that the human body can handle. So the thing that I glommed onto when I was watching was, this guy should have no fingers, no toes. His face should be pretty much like gone by the end of the movie. He was pretty much, I wouldn't say unscathed, but he was relatively in somewhat decent shape for somebody who's out in the wilderness swimming in freezing water and stuff like that.
There
so that
was
was the
a
one
lot
thing
of
that
tracking through freezing water that didn't seem to bother anybody. I felt
that's what I was like. I'm like, I've stuck my hand in snow. I lived in Connecticut, you know, like my hands have gone numb after 10 minutes of shoveling, you know. It's like, and you know, and I was like, I don't know. That was one of the things that I got onto, you know. I tried to let that go for the most part, but that was pretty much the only thing that I had against it. And then I read later actually of what Revenant actually stands for, or what it means, I should say. And Revenant is supposed to be a supernatural spirit that comes and haunts humans or something like that. I guess basically a ghost of some sort, but not really a ghost, I guess was the... I forgot what the definition was. I looked it up yesterday or so, but in that aspect, I'm like, okay, I guess I can kind of see that, but I didn't know that when I went into it, so it's one of those like, I might need to see it again to actually get a better impression now that I, you know,
right.
I would go into it knowing a little bit more. But yeah, it's I think the acting definitely was amazing, especially if you read behind the scenes stuff on what they had to go through to do it and everything. That's a lot of talent to be able to get that across on screen and be absolutely freezing, you know, basically while you're doing the whole thing.
I wondered about that too. In regard, is it more the acting? Is it impressive because it's of the endurance, you know, of the intensity of the environment and everything that they went through? But I guess you have to be able to hold character while you're basically being tortured by the elements. I think
exactly.
I think that's what's going to push him over the top and why he's probably going to finally win his Oscar. So.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, to me, like, you know, it's one of those things. Like I said, I like going into it not knowing anything, and then I read up on it later, and I usually gain a lot more appreciation afterwards when I read the stuff after that, and like that kind of stuff, you know, that kind of thing. It was like, well, if you know, if he was able to do all that and be out in the elements, and you know, basically. I would assume he was pretty numb for most of it and still be able to pull something like that off and be, I mean, he was definitely believable and everything. And, you know, as far as my little gripe about the movie, I wouldn't say that should affect anything that, you know, as far as his chances of winning anything, I suppose.
I gotta tell you, I thought that bear attack was realistic as hell. I had no issues with the CGI on that. I'm assuming it was Andy Serkis. I have no idea, but I gotta tell you, that thing really freaked me out. There were a bunch of gasp moments in this film where, like you said, it's hard to believe he survived this. But the film is semi-biographical, right? It's this guy existed. He went through this stuff. I bet you that the story is actually a lot crazier than what's even in the movie at some points. It's just one of those things where it's so ridiculous that you wouldn't even believe any of it that it happened.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I had read an article today actually while I was, you know, thinking about this, and they had said that that one actually said the story was even less entertaining because, like, you know, it was the bear attack, and then I guess he ran into some, you know, he like joined up with like a couple people here and there and started continuing his trek, and then like they would get killed off, so like he kept surviving all these different Indian attacks and all this other stuff, but then they said by the time he got to the fort and found the guys, nothing happened because he was just so drained and was like, fuck, screw it, I'm done.
Yeah, the actual ending is much different, right? That the guy actually does re-enlist and he does track him down, but he doesn't kill him in real life.
Yeah, he ends up just like letting it go.
Yeah, interesting. I gotta tell you, when I was watching this, all I could think of is the title of this should be Leo on the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. Like I said, everything that could possibly go wrong for him in this film does. But I want to say, it starts, Emmanuel Lubezki, I think, has to win an Academy Award for this, for the cinematography. It is a gorgeous film from start to finish. Maybe a little long at times. I remember there was a couple points that said, yeah, we could have cut that out. But for the most part, some of just the scenes in this thing, and the opening was reminiscent of Curran's Children of Men, which is possibly one of the greatest tracking shots I've ever seen. But there's a battle of the Native Americans basically ambush the group of trackers or pelt getter peoplers, whatever they call themselves, the hunters. And it is fantastic. I mean, it is all the chaos of being surrounded by the Native Americans and under attack, trying to get to this boat so they can escape, as all of their friends are just getting cut down left and right. It was that. I mean, that was fantastic to watch. That was, as I said earlier, gasp-inducing throughout the thing too. I think the whole film, you're just under a sensory assault. You know, it's great sound design too. I mean, I walked out of thing like that was an experience, and it's also an events that I would not survive if I was in those cases.
I had said that to a friend of mine, the friend that I went and watched it with. When I walked out, I was like, I know people back then were obviously more grizzled and a lot tougher than people nowadays. He goes,
right.
I was like, I wouldn't last 5 minutes. I would have been done in no time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a gut check movie for you. Let me tell you, but I think I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I think maybe it's one of those, not quite a Training Day scenario, which is what I refer to when the acting performances are better than the movie as a whole. But still, I think that the performances and just the shots and how beautiful the film is really what elevates it for me. So I really, really enjoyed it. I don't think it's going to win Best Picture, and we'll do Oscar predictions when we get closer to the Oscars. But it definitely deserved at least a nomination, so I'm glad to see it got that. I don't know. So if you've had any other thoughts, Wayne, before we move on?
No, I don't think so.
Fair enough. Well, if anybody's had a chance to see The Revenant, shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. Now let's move on then. Matt, did you have any questions about The Revenant? Are you even more jazzed to see it now, or do you feel like, you know what, I think I can skip it at this point then?
No, I mean, I still want to see it. I mean, it looks, I'm a fan of Westerns. I'm not a huge fan of Leonardo DiCaprio. I was just talking to my wife about it. I mean, he's good in his roles, but I just can't stand him as basically in life and all of his interviews and stuff. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm not super jazzed about it, but I definitely want to see it just because I'm very interested to see the visuals. It looks beautiful. I like Westerns, so...
I thought he was I found him to be one of the standouts in Django Unchained, though. He's probably one of my favorite parts of that film.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I think he's really good. I mean, I thought he was really good in The Wolf of Wall Street. I think he's really good at playing characters. I just don't like him. I just don't like him in general as a human being.
It's like me and Tom Brady.
Yeah, there you go.
That's why James Franco.
What?
We like James Franco.
I can't. Yeah, no, I can't.
Fair enough.
I mean, it's a national treasure.
Yes, he is. So, wow. All right, then. Ah, damn it, Matt. What was I going to ask you? You inspired me to think of something, and then it's slipped my mind. So maybe I'll remember as we go. Okay, so Blu-ray and DVD, it's coming up this upcoming Tuesday on January 19th. Straight Outta Compton, an unrated director's cut is being released. There's a Target Steelbook if you want to get that, if you're one of those Steelbook people. Walmart has an extra 30 minutes of bonus content as well. There's some deleted scenes and some other documentary stuff, featurette, I should say, exclusive to the Blu-ray. So if you're a fan of the film, you may want to look out for the Blue. And, of course, it features commentary by the director, Gary Gray. There's interviews with NWA as well, minus Eazy-E, of course. But yeah, so do you guys get to see Straight Outta Compton this year or last year?
I did not know.
All right, great. So,
well, do you think it got snubbed? I know there's a lot of buzz that they think it should have gotten nominated for something.
I don't know. It was good. I don't know, considering the rest of the films that came out, if it should. I mean, there's 3 open spots,
right.
The Best Picture category. Curiously, Star Wars is missing from that as well. I don't quite well, we can talk about that later. But still, yeah, no, I don't know. I guess so. If we're going to go 10 deep, why not go 10 deep?
Right.
And then I think maybe then it would make the cut. I don't think it would deserve to win, though.
Okay.
And I think somebody tweeted, too, which I thought was hilarious, that it would have been perfect if you had O'Shea holding himself at the end of the film. Because Ice Cube's kid played Ice Cube, so you could have Ice Cube's kid playing him holding himself. I think that would have been a fantastic way to end it too. That was a great idea. The Intern, the Anne Hathaway Robert De Niro film, is being released as well. Includes a Blu-ray DVD Ultraviolet, some behind-the-scenes featurettes for that. Are you guys fans of Gaspar Noé? Is it Noé? No? Nui?
Yeah, that's the guy. That's the Into the Void guy. That's that guy, right?
Yep.
Okay. He makes interesting films. I'll give him that much.
Well, his new 3D porn film. No, that's me being judgmental. His new 3D sexual odyssey film is being released. It's basically a sexual melodrama about a boy and a girl and another girl. It's a love story which celebrates sex in a joyous way. And it's 3D.
Actually, I think if that's the one, I just read about the actors from Portland.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Keeping it weird.
There was an article in the local paper.
I don't know if I said the title, but it's called Love. So you can check that out if you'd like.
Didn't he do Irreversible too?
Yes, he did.
Oh, that was a tough movie.
That's a one-timer.
Yeah, that is definitely a one-timer.
When you have like a 10 to 15-minute rape scene in a tunnel, you're not going to go back to that anytime soon.
Yeah, I didn't get to watch that one. I did have it on a list, but the list is long.
I think you should see it.
Yeah, you should check it out. It's on Netflix, I think.
But it's a one-timer.
Definitely.
And that's who Nicholas Winding Refn went to for Drive. You know that scene in Drive when Ryan Gosling is basically kicking the guy's head in, his face in the elevator. Yeah. He actually went to know because of the scene in Irreversible when something similar happens because he wanted to figure out how do you make that so realistic. So if you're into heads getting kicked in,
and who is
Jasper knows your go-to guy. All Things Must Pass, a documentary about the rise and fall of Tower Records, is being released as well. I'm sure it'll hit Netflix at some point, though, so I'd say hold on for that, but I would definitely want to watch that. It's just an interesting thing. They're talking about the history of the music industry, and in particularly this gigantic record store chain. We still got to watch the Canon documentary, too, Matt. I don't know. Wayne, you ever interested in that? You know the old Canon group that made all those B and C
movies
in the 80s?
Yeah.
There's a documentary about them on Netflix right now, so we've been.
That's cool.
Yeah, I started to watch that.
How is it so far?
It was good. I was enjoying it. My 4-year-old daughter was playing with her dolls, and I thought, oh, this will be pretty innocuous. I can put this on. She's not paying any attention. She comes over, plops next to me, and then literally there's the guy walking around with a boner in his underwear, and I was like, really? Come on, really, right now. And she laughed.
I watched. There's one called Rewind This. It was all about the VHS, boom back in the '80s, and I was watching that on the plane when I went back to Connecticut for a visit, and right smack dab in the middle, they of course start talking about how VHS revolutionized the porn industry, and I was like tilting the thing away from the woman next to me because it just jumped right into showing porn like full on.
Nice.
Like, okay, it was good. It was a good documentary though.
I'll have to check that one out too then. New to Blu-ray, Criterion is releasing their version of Inside Llewyn Davis. Much appraised film by the Coen brothers. Have you guys seen Inside Llewyn Davis? It kind of launched Oscar Isaac into the big kind of star category.
Yeah, it was good.
Nope, I haven't.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Inside
Coens.
Yeah. So if you get a chance, when you should check that one out.
Yeah,
digital transfer.
I like the Coens brothers, so yeah, definitely I would.
Nice. There's an Inside Llewyn Davis 43-minute documentary, 101-minute concert documentary, featuring performances by Davis, but also Joan Baez and Marcus Mumford. Isn't that? I guess it's one of the Mumford brothers, right? I've heard a joke once that all their songs are exactly the same. I'm not sure if that's true, but that probably is. But it's got a slew of other extras. I mean, it's Criterion, right? They always do that. They're also releasing Gilda, the lovely Rita Hayworth's film, new 2K digital restoration, commentary by film critic Richard Schickel, and a bunch of other stuff as well. Other stuff getting released on Blu-ray for the first time. Do you guys remember Ice Pirates?
Yes, I had that on VHS.
Well, now's your chance to upgrade, Wayne, to Blu-ray.
I don't know. It's probably better on VHS.
American Gigolo, starring Richard Gere, is being released as well. The Last Detail, starring Jack Nicholson. The Guardian, the horror film from, was that late 80s, early 90s, The Guardian? That's the one with the babysitter, right?
You would know. If any of us would know, it would be you.
And then Nightmare Weekend is being released as well. It's a new from Scream Factory. A new 2K restoration on that with the long unavailable uncut version and a bunch of other special features. So you can check that out. So let's talk quickly before we move on to Monster Squad, I think. I'd like to discuss the Oscars just for a few minutes. We can run down. We won't go deep into it. Just kind of things that may have caught your eye, gentlemen, or things you might have found interesting. I'll just briefly tell you the Best Picture nominees, though. The Big Short, Bridge of Spies, Brooklyn, Mad Max Fury Road, The Martian, The Revenant, Room, and Spotlight. Now, the only one of these I haven't seen is Brooklyn, which is playing here again, I think, because of the nomination, so I'm hoping to check that out soon. But do you think anything that you may have seen that you think was snubbed, or is there anything on that list do you think, why the hell is that on there? I don't know. What do you think?
Go ahead, Wayne.
Yeah, I was just going to say I only saw Fury Road and Revenant, so...
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. You're probably asking the wrong guys from what we've already told you as far as what is the best. I mean, I guess, from my perspective, I'm, I know it will not win, but I'm glad Fury Road kind of like you don't see a lot of genre films on there. We talked about Star Wars. I'm kind of okay with that. I enjoyed the new Star Wars movie, but it's got some flaws to it. It's not, great picture worthy and necessarily, and it's not. Granted, it made a ton of money, but it's not like the cultural touchstone that the first one was or A New Hope was. So I'm okay with it not being nominated. But otherwise, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think I'm a little surprised that I know there's like Inside Out. I thought might have been nominated. If especially since it hasn't gotten the obviously we were still up to had 3 more that could have chosen. I also thought that documentary, the sequel to The Act of Killing, The Look of Silence, which is really good, and I'm actually surprised that didn't get nominated either.
Yeah, I feel a lot of times with that kind of stuff, if it has another category, it won't get it. Like Inside Out, it's got the best animated feature category, so it gets robbed by that. It doesn't make a Best Picture nominee. Same thing with the documentary, too. I feel that it ends up, because it's not Look of Silence, which I haven't seen, but I love The Act of Killing. Mm-hmm. So, that's nominated for Best Documentary Feature. So, again, I feel like they give themselves an out. But I think it's a great point that to have a genre film like Fury Road actually make the Best Picture category is a victory almost in itself. I agree with you with Star Wars, even though there's 2 open spots. I should clarify, 8 picture nominees, 2 open spots. I agree Star Wars probably isn't up there. I think it gets handicapped because everybody's just so happy that it's not a disaster. It's not the prequels.
That was my when I left, that was exactly my thought.
So, yeah, I think it's definitely grading on a curve with that. I don't know. When I look at it, I try and figure out what they're going to go for. I'm leaning towards the Spotlight, to be honest with you. Okay. I enjoyed Spotlight. I don't think it deserves to win, but knowing the Academy, I feel like that kind of a film is in the wheelhouse. That or maybe The Martian pushing it. I don't know.
So? Okay.
I don't know. We'll see. I would love for Mad Max to win. I don't think it's going to happen. Did you see, too, George Miller said he's not going to do another one?
I did see that. I mean, he basically said it was just too difficult for him to do. I guess he's just getting too old, I guess.
And so what do you think? Would that be the end of the franchise, or do you think they'll just bring somebody else in and take over and do another one?
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, it did well, but it didn't like set the world on fire as far as making money. I mean, they spent $150 million on that. I don't know. I guess I could pull up Box Office Mojo here. But I don't think it made a ton of money to where the studio's like, yep, we definitely have to make another one of these. But if it's got a lot of good critical buzz, the nerds love it. You will see what happens if it becomes like a cult thing. Maybe we'll see another one in 10 years or something.
Fair enough. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. It made its gross was $153 million, and it cost $150 million to make.
Wow, but that's domestic, right?
That's domestic. That's true. It made another $222 million outside of the U.S.
And then you add in Blu-ray sales, rentals, digital sales, all that other stuff. Then it's profitable. So that's something. Yeah. But I read once too that they have a difficulty getting money sometimes from the overseas theaters.
Oh, really?
They don't always get everything they're supposed to get.
Right. That doesn't shock me. Those Australians, I know they're holding on to it.
So what do you think about Sylvester Stallone winning the Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor, and what do you think the odds are of him winning the Oscar is here, and how much of a turnaround would that be career-wise for him? Holy cow!
Yeah, but it wouldn't be the first time around. I mean, didn't he get nominated for Copland?
I think he did actually. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like I just view it as another renaissance that he'll build some goodwill and he'll do some stuff and he'll kind of
squander
it away like he did last time. That's just what Sly Stallone does for me. Although I'm kind of curious that, the movie that he's in, the Golden Globes, Michael B. Jordan didn't get nominated, the director didn't get nominated, and the film didn't get nominated, which you said was really, really good. I didn't see it, but obviously, it's obviously seems like it's a really good film. So I'm kind of curious why the rest of them didn't get nominated, as opposed to just Sly.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I'm not quite sure. the logic behind all of that either. Another big snub, too, for the Best Picture things that I don't quite get, and Wayne, I know you've seen this, so I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. We talked about it last week, but Hateful Eight did not get a nomination for Best Picture. Where do you come down? I feel like, and tell me if you agree with this, I feel like there's two camps in this. I loved it, but online, the reception I've seen is that people seem to, who don't like it, seem to like Django Unchained as like their second favorite Tarantino film, which Matt and I think is like lesser Tarantino. But there seems to be those two camps. So where did you fall down with the Hateful Eight?
I actually am on your side on that one because one of the caveats is to Django was one of those ones that I kept saying I was going to watch, and I didn't watch it until after I saw Hateful Eight. So because as soon as I finished watching Hateful Eight, I went, I need to watch this again. Like I immediately wanted to sit down and watch that movie again, and so I was like, well. Out here, they had the 70 millimeters theaters basically down the street,
Nice.
And I wanted to go again the next weekend, and it was sold out the entire time. And I actually was going to go. I was going to go. There was a Tuesday night, and I was thinking of going, and it was a night where I had a whole beard thing going on and CPAP machine that I'm dealing with, so like I couldn't breathe with it, so I had to shave the beard. And I'm like, well. I'd rather breathe than go to a movie. I'll go to the movie tomorrow. Well, it turns out that night is when Tarantino showed up and did a Q&A afterwards. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? I was not happy with that decision that night.
Wow.
But yeah,
That's
so I did go
crazy.
see it again. So I did see it twice. And but yeah, like Django after I don't know if it's like I said, I don't know if it's because I watched it after Hateful Eight and I liked that movie so much. I was not impressed with Django, and I got done with it kind of like, meh, you know, like I wouldn't put that in the top bunch of his movies, you know, like that's definitely down toward the bottom for me, I think, as far as the movies that he did. It's not that I hated it so much, I don't know, it just felt like it really didn't have, it kind of didn't know where it was going. It just kind of kept going on and on and on through the whole movie, you know, so it was...
That's exactly basically what my thoughts were. Another thing, too, is I felt like he didn't know how to end it. He wasn't sure where to... I feel like he didn't know what he was going to do with it when he finally had it at the end. So, interesting. Oh, it's good to know, then.
It is interesting, though. He doesn't always get nominated for Best Picture, but he almost always gets nominated for Screenplay, and he didn't even get nominated for this.
Yeah, I'm shocked by that, actually, because I really, like Lane did, I really like this film a lot. I am surprised that it didn't get... That is interesting to me that he did not get Best Originals. So the nominees were Bridge of Spies, which I saw, which is good, solid film. Ex Machina, really interesting. Inside Out, Spotlight, and Straight Outta Compton. So there's your Compton nomination. But yeah, no, I'm surprised by that as well. I don't know. Oh, one other thing too I wanted to look at too is if Morricone was going to be nominated. Yes, he was. Good. I was concerned because I know some of the music in the film was unused stuff from The Thing. I was wondering if he was going to get dinged for that, but I guess since it was not in the final film, I guess they don't. Because if they use other movie music from other films, they disqualify you.
Right. It's not an original score.
Right.
Right.
So I'm glad he's nominated. I think that's a lock. If you have any wonders of what the locks are going to be, that's one of them.
That's the one. Take it to the bank.
That's right. Put all your money on Hateful Eight score.
Call Vegas. Chris Scalzo's Lock of the Week.
Hey, I did great last year. I got 2 or 3 wrong last year?
Yeah, and if you were going to have a lock, I would definitely say it's movie scores, because I know nobody who loves movie scores as much as you do. So.
God, I love film scores. I'm so into Clint, what's his name, the guy from Red Hot Chili Peppers, and now I'm blanking on him. So, one of the original members who then left. He did the score for Drive and Only God Forgives. I had a nice little thing today. Did you see the AV Club? Did a little write-up about Only God Forgives.
Yeah, it was a secret success.
Yep, I love that film.
Yeah.
Wayne, have you seen Only God Forgives?
I have not. That's another one on the list.
So, yeah, you should definitely check that. I don't know if that's streaming anywhere. Oh, yeah, it is. It's on Amazon Prime. So if you have Amazon Prime.
Oh, yeah, I do have Amazon Prime. Yep.
There you go. All right. Let's transition then. Let's talk about Monster Squad, a classic from the 80s. This is one of those VHS tapes, gentlemen, that I just wore out. I used to watch Monster Squad all the time. I popped it in today, previous to the show. One thing I did forget was how incredibly homophobic the film is at times. But I think that's more just a sign of the times when it was okay to drop the F-bomb, that version of it. And also, we could shame fat people and not have to worry about it. Have a character called Fat Kid. My name is Horace. But still, so if you're not familiar with Monster Squad, basically it's a film from the 80s about a bunch of kids who end up going up against the Universal monsters. So Dracula, Wolfman, the Creature from the Black Lagoon, Frankenstein. Everybody's here for the big party, the Mummy. And it's every 100 years there's a talisman that's found, or Dracula wakes up. I'm not quite sure. I don't remember how that all happens, how they all get together. But the talisman is what keeps the balance. If you destroy this talisman, then evil can take over the world, and it's up to our plucky kids, our horror-based Goonies, to save the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I've expressed my love for Monster Squad. Let's go around the room from you were a kid. Matt, were you a fan of Monster Squad as a kid?
Oh yeah, this is like the Holy Grail when this came out. I wanted to see it so badly. It had monsters. It had the kind of kid vibe. I remember when I don't know if I was old enough when it came out in the theaters, but I know we ended up getting it for somebody's birthday party. We watched it on VHS, and we were breathless with anticipation getting ready to watch this thing.
Nice. All right, and Wayne, what were your thoughts? Were you a fan of Monster Squad as a kid?
No, it's funny. Actually, I don't think I ever watched it when I was a kid, so I didn't have that nostalgia.
You're a big movie guy, and I feel like all these movies you haven't seen. I can't believe you haven't seen Monster Squad.
You know how many movies there are out there?
And listen, I think it'll be good though to get your perspective as never having seen it, so you're not going to be at all influenced by your childhood.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
All right, so let's do it this way then. We'll have Matt, you go first, and then Wayne, you can go as the control, and then I'll go. So Matt, it's the basic question: Monster Squad, did it hold up?
No, it's lost some of its luster for me. So I'm going to start with the criticism sandwich. I'll say a good thing first. I was actually still pretty impressed, and I think the special effects for what they were, like the makeup effects, were actually pretty good. Like, I thought the Creature from the Black Lagoon looks pretty scary. I thought the Wolfman was pretty decent. So the monster makeup and the kind of the production values I thought were pretty good. And it definitely has that kind of like 80s movie kid adventure vibe to it, but which would appeal to me as an 8-year-old. But it's just, as a guy in his mid-30s now. I mean, it's just painfully 80s in a lot of places. It's still got most of the jokes don't land. You kind of cringe at some of the stuff that you didn't really think about, like the kind of casual homophobia that you hear that doesn't really isn't really appropriate anymore, and it's not really funny. So I guess it doesn't really hold up as well as I would have hoped it would. But I still remember, I still remember liking it when I was a kid, and I understand why I liked it when I was a kid.
All right then. Well, interesting. I'll have some comments about that. Wayne, where do you come down as never having seen it previously?
All right. Well, so the funny thing was that when you had mentioned it, I was pretty sure that I had seen it, and I was like, man, I don't know if I had ever watched this movie or not. And then I checked that letterboxd.com, the place that I do the reviews, just to kind of have the list of movies to let me know how much I've watched. And the reason I do that is because, and I blame the 10 years of sleep apnea that have finally been diagnosed, but I have a horrible memory. So I've had times where I watch movies and I have no recollection if I liked it, how, what I felt about it, nothing. So I started writing those little reviews that I write so that I kind of have something to go back to find out if I actually liked it or not. Because there was a movie, Her Minor Thing, was this stupid rom-com that was back in I think the late 90s or early 2000s something. And it was a Stella Warren, and it was this dude from the show Angel. I don't know if you were a fan of Angel or whatnot.
I know of it, but I wasn't there. Is it David Borneo?
No, yeah, it wasn't him. But no, it was one of the minor characters. He was like the lawyer guy that was working for Wolfram and Hart or whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
So it was in there, and I remember like I bought the DVD because it was at Goodwill or whatnot. And I was like, Estella Warren. I was like, I think I remember this guy from that. I was like, watch it, whatever. I'm always picking up weird, stupid movies like that. And I watched the whole movie, and I went to go put my little review in Letterboxd. I think actually it was I Check Movies at that point because I found a different place. But I go to put it in, and I look at it, and it says, "You've already watched this movie," and I'm like. I don't remember anything of that movie. And granted, it was a very forgettable movie, but that happens more often than I care to, have happen. So in this one, it was the same thing. I was like, did I ever watch that? And I'm like, I don't think I watched that. And I'm like, I kind of remember it, but I don't. I actually rented it on, they had it on YouTube for rental because I wanted to make sure that I watched it before I came on here just to have, some kind of insight on it. And, like, 5 minutes in, I was like, oh, yes, I've seen this movie. And it wasn't when I was a kid. I remember it was a couple years ago, I think I had watched it, because it was one of those things I'm like, I never watched this movie. I remember people talking about it. And, yeah, so in watching it now, I was just bored. Like, I just remember the whole time just going, man, I think even if I watched it back when I was a kid, I would not have enjoyed this movie. I don't know what it was about it. And I could just be guessing because I'm, my taste in movies obviously are different than ones back then. But like, I didn't really see anything because I had read afterwards, today when I was doing some other research and stuff on this stuff, they had talking about how it was only released on video like once, and it was never re-released until they like had this big push for it in like 2005 or something like that, when they finally got it released on DVD, and Draft House, in Austin had this big huge thing, and it was sold out, and everybody was like, oh, this is my favorite movie when I was a kid. And I was just like, I don't think it would have been if I watched it. Like, I mean, I agree that the special effects were pretty good. At least for the time too. Yeah, I mean the creature effects were great. The creature from the lagoon was awesome. I liked the Wolfman. The only criticism I had about that stuff was the Dracula. Just seemed really like they kind of didn't know what to do with him. So it's like, just paint him white, put him in a cape, we're good. Like there's really nothing else you can do with that. So that was. I was not terribly impressed with that. But I mean, even stuff like they seemed to kind of know how to, with the short bit of like special effects that they used, they knew how to use what they could do without being cheesy. Like I remember one of the parts in the beginning was right in the beginning when the bat turns into the human shape, and they show the bat, and it was all the animatronic stuff, and then they show like the hand, and it kind of goes out, and then it kind of shrivels down, and then they cut to like the hand, like a person's hand grabbing, and it was like, I don't know, that kind of stuff was done. To me, is like really, at least decently in the sense that like people who don't know how to like edit stuff and make sure that they cut out the stuff that doesn't work, sometimes that kind of falls flat. But in that one, it didn't. They did a pretty good job on that kind of stuff. But other than that, I didn't really have anything good to say about it. So yeah, I kind of wish I had seen it when I was a kid so I could relate to that, but I had plenty of other ones I think I would rather go back to watch, and if I did watch it.
Well, Wayne just crapped all over our movie, Chris.
I know. I gotta say, I think you're both wrong. I think this thing holds up beautifully. You have to watch it with the respect through the 80s prism. You have to watch the 80s prism. You can't watch it today with your modern, I'm cool, let's watch a German art house film sensibilities. You have to watch
I don't know about that.
You have to watch this as in kind of in that 80s mode. I mean, this is Fred Decker, right? He did Night of the Creeps, for Christ's sake. Another great 80s horror film. Sorry?
I would watch that one again.
And it's written by Shane Black. Shane Black, who at one point was like the #1 screenwriter in Hollywood, right? And he's got a little career resurgence lately. But I thought it was exceptionally. Listen, it held up totally for me. I think considering outside of the issues of the stuff that just is not proper in today's day and age, but still, I thought it was very funny at times. I love the cliched Universal monsters. I love the fact that Dracula looks like somebody dressed up in Halloween as Dracula. There was no. It's not Gary Oldman, right? And Coppola's Dracula. So I really like the cliche, the whole thing of it. And I tell you, there's nothing more sublime than seeing Dracula running around with dynamite. And it's just something about it with him walking around. And then he throws it in the clubhouse, and he's got like a Schwarzenegger walk-away line as the clubhouse explodes. Meeting adjourned, I think is what he says. You know, I mean, just, I'm telling you, I loved how self-aware it was as well of kind of how 80s ridiculous it even was back then. It really kind of winked at you even throughout the movie, which I really appreciated. I don't know, I really enjoyed it. I remembered being a kid too, how I wish I could be as cool as Rudy was. Never mind the fact having a guy that cool who's even named Rudy. But I feel, for me, I don't understand what happened here. I feel like this film was, I guess it just performed poorly, because I think you could have made 2 sequels out of this thing. For me, I actually, and this is going to be blasphemy, I think, I watching this today, I'm like, I enjoyed this more than Goonies.
What?
I didn't.
Well, you know, it's funny.
You were patently insane.
It's funny because that was another one I never watched as a kid.
No?
Yeah, no, it was another one that just...
Man.
Yeah, I don't know if it was me. It was just the fact that it was Universal Monsters.
Was Wayne in his basement watching Das Boot or something? What was he watching? What were you watching there, bud?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I remember, like, I had a thing too when I was like back in like high school and stuff like that. Whereas if a lot of people, you know, if it was one of those really popular movies where people were like, "Oh, you gotta watch it, you gotta watch it," you know, I always was like, "No, I don't." I wouldn't watch it. Like that happened with like Forrest Gump for the longest time because I was working at the video store at that point. We had to, you know, promote the crap out of that thing, and I was like, I don't really want to watch this movie, and I never didn't watch it till like probably less than 10 years ago or something like that, you know. So, but yeah, no, I just remember that was one that I never ended up sitting down and watching.
Well, I don't know. I think I'm probably overstepping with the thing that I'm saying it's better.
Yeah, you may have just invalidated your opinion there.
Well, I would say I did watch Goonies afterwards, so I did watch it, you know, maybe like, you know, 10 years ago or whatever, newer. Right. But I would say I would watch Goonies more than again before I would watch this one. So. Fine.
Either way, for me, it totally held up. I think it was just as good as when I was a kid. The nostalgia, maybe I just got drunk on nostalgia. But,
you got that hit of that sweet 80s and Universal Monster sauce, and that was it, huh?
I think it's a great point because I even got nostalgic when the TriStar logo started at the beginning of the film. I don't know, it just brought me back because, you know, TriStar's not around anymore. I think actually they tried to revise it a couple years ago, but still, yeah, even that was enough to kind of like, oh yeah, this is gonna be fun. And I did enjoy it, so I think you're all wrong.
What year did that come out?
87?
87, okay.
Right.
See, like, you know, around that time was my obsession movie was, like, the original Batman and everything like that, so.
Sure. No, I was the same way in 80s. Man, 89, when Batman came out, I must have watched that thing a dozen times a month.
Oh, my God, I would...
Talk about it has not aged well.
That's true.
I remember watching. We ended up playing Batman for one of our the Maloney band. We had Batman was one of the themes and whatnot. And I remember that summer afterwards when we did that, I had watched that movie every night for the entire summer.
Nice. So that's that's basically I think what I did too. That's another VHS tape that I wore out.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep.
What's funny, I have not upgraded the Blu-ray. I have not. I
Really?
have my DVD, the last DVD remaster that came out years ago, and I don't have the urge to upgrade it. So
I'm collecting VHS. I'm collecting VHS tapes again. So
nice. So you're the guy.
Yeah.
There's a Grindhouse video store here. Nice guy, small little store, just starting I think out. But I just pre-ordered the Pieces Blu-ray. I don't know if you guys have seen the horror classic. Nice. So that's going to be released on Blu-ray, which includes the soundtrack too, which I'm excited about. So, but I'm telling you what, he had a massive collection of VHS tapes too.
Mm.
So.
Yeah, the Hollywood Theater, the place that I like going to, that has all sorts of. They have Grindhouse night, and they were playing Pieces. That's actually the first time I watched it. It was a couple months ago.
Nice. What'd you think of that?
Stuff. Yeah. I love that. That was very entertaining. Yeah.
Matt, have you seen Pieces?
I have not.
Is that the one where I think the poster tag is you don't have to go to Texas for a chainsaw massacre?
I think you were talking about this last week or something.
I don't remember if that's what that was. Yeah.
And Bluto's in it from the Popeye movie.
Wow.
I would not. Yeah. Don't recall that one.
yeah. All right. So if you had a chance to see Monster Squad, who do you agree with? Do you think Matt's entirely wrong, which he is? Do you think about Wayne, who just saw it for the first time and he can't appreciate it because he's now 30 something? Or me?
Actually, no. I saw it twice. I saw it twice now. So.
All right.
I mean, if you haven't seen it. It's a bit of 80s ephemera. It's fine. Watch it, just to. But I mean, I wouldn't rush out there and don't expect too much. I had to throw that in there, Chris. I'm sorry.
That's fine. I have to look up what ephemera means. So shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. Let's talk briefly then about 2015. I guess what I'll do is I'll go down my 10 through 6 now. If you guys have, I guess, 5 or whatever. So you can tell me your thoughts. So I'll start off basically with my number 10. I still go back and forth on between Creed and Sicario. I can't decide which one I want to be 10. Gun to my head, I guess I go Creed, but I really like Sicario too, and I'm curious to see what they do with this. They're supposed to do a sequel of Benicio del Toro's character. I don't know where you go next with that, but maybe. I don't know. So I don't know. I'm still stuck on that. 9, Spotlight. It's got a lot of good buzz. I think it may end up winning Best Picture, but for me, I really enjoyed it, but I feel like there wasn't enough there. It could have been like a All the President's Men kind of newspaper procedural and really knock it out of the park. And for me, I felt it was just good. It delivered. It was entertaining. I really liked it, but something stopped it from elevating to that upper stratosphere for me. Number 8 comes in at The Revenant. We just talked about it earlier in the show, so you can just rewind, I guess, and go to that. Number 7, a film that was really nobody saw, and I don't understand it because I thought it was fantastic, and that's Danny Boyle's Steve Jobs. Fassbender is nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actor. He may win. I still think Leo probably will because of the suffering. But I think what Boyle does is he doesn't do like a typical biographical film. What he does is he takes 3 key points in Steve Jobs' life and just kind of presents those moments to you. And I don't know. I just thought it was really fantastically done. Great script, too, written by Aaron Sorkin. So I don't know. I really like Steve Jobs. I think it was unfairly maligned. Really, nobody went to see it. When it comes out on Blu-ray or streaming or whatever, you have to check it out. Number 6, then, for me, finally, then, is A Return to Form for Ridley Scott. I feel like he just kicks one out like every 5-6 years. He gives us an actual really good film, and this time it's with The Martian with Matt Damon. So if you haven't seen The Martian, it's one of the better sci-fi films that I've seen in the last couple of years. But this is a great year for sci-fi too. Ex Machina didn't make the cut for me. If you haven't seen Ex Machina, that's a great little film as well. So yeah, that's my 10 through 6. So I guess we can just go around the room. Matt, why don't you start us off then? If you have one, what's your number 5?
Oh, this is going to be so bad. Okay, so my number 5, just based off. So I really just want to go quickly, if I can, just indulge me here. I just want to go through what I saw in 2015. Okay. SpongeBob SquarePants the movie, Slow West, Home, which is a DreamWorks alien animated film, Age of Ultron, Maggie, Spy, Poltergeist, Jurassic World, Terminator Genesis, Rogue Nation, American Ultra, Hotel Transylvania 2, Scout's Guide to the Apocalypse, Peanuts movie, Good Dinosaur, and then Force Awakens, Ex Machina. So as you can see, I have a very limited list to choose from here. So let's just go with what I got here. So number 5 was the latest Marvel film, Ant-Man. I believe it was pretty good. I enjoyed it a lot. I appreciated it was kind of a lesser-known hero. I liked the comedy in it. It was flawed. It had, didn't hit throughout the whole thing, but the visuals and the action scenes were very creative. I liked the kind of small pieces of it. The acting was pretty good as a whole. So I thought it was a really enjoyable entry into the Marvel canon. And, it's probably, I think we've decided, in the top half of all of the Marvel films that are out there.
All right. Yeah, I liked Ant-Man a lot. I felt it was one of the stronger entries in the Marvel Universe this year, the cinematic universe. I love the fact that it was small, too, because everything's been really big from them, and I like kind of the smaller scope of this film, so interesting. All right, what about you, Wayne? What's your number 5, or any thoughts on Ant-Man if you had a chance to see it?
I did see Ant-Man, actually. That one, I think it was basically, I'm in the same boat on that one. I had fun watching it. A lot of issues I had with it was, some of the science that they used in it, and a lot of the stuff they were trying to, use to as far as, when you start thinking about it too much, which it's a superhero movie, so you don't necessarily want to, go into and start picking it apart. Otherwise, you're not going to enjoy yourself, because you could do that with any of them. But that was the big thing that knocked it for me, because it was kind of like, it was like, yeah, it was fun. I like Rudd and everything, and the only issue I had with it was that it just, like, there were a lot of stuff where you're like, really, that's how that's gonna go. But as far as fun factor, it was definitely really it was a good one, but I wouldn't put it in my top 5.
I think Corey Stoll was a good bad guy too, as Yellow Jacket. He really kind of chewed up the scenery in that, so I enjoyed that as well. So what's your 5 then? What do you got for us?
Yeah, I never have an easy time trying to make lists of things and trying to pick stuff out. So, like, I was trying to figure out what I would do as far as my list, and like I said, I watched apparently 100 movies that I hadn't seen before this year, and 17 of them were new this year. So, and let's see, one of them was Kung Fury, so I don't know if that counts. But I don't know if I would put that in my top 5, but that was one of the better ones that I had seen. There's another one called Parallels that I had in here, which was a low one, though, but that's not going to go in there either. So it kind of knocks it down to even fewer than that. Let's see. So I might as well do the same thing on the ones that I had seen. I had Ex Machina, I had Parallels, Furious 7, Spy, Mad Max, Maggie, Sicario, Kung Fury, Terminator Salvation, Ant-Man, Mission Impossible, Vacation, The Gift, No Escape, Hateful Eight, Star Wars, and The Revenant. So those are the ones that I have to pick from. Okay. And of course, like I said, my memory is horrible, so I'm looking at my little list here on the thing that I got. And as far as, I'm going to look at the ones that I had rated 5 stars. I had Ex Machina, Spy, Hateful Eight, and actually that looks like that's all I had is 5 stars. So those, I guess, would be in the top. I think, let's see, after that was 4 stars. Let's see, 4.5. I had Kung Fury was 4.5. Vacation and Star Wars. So, I don't know. See, it's really tough to choose on that kind of stuff because I like each of these movies for a different reason. It's kind of hard it's kind of hard to say I liked Vacation over Star Wars for some reason. It's like you can't really compare the two, And
that's the National Lampoon relaunch?
Yeah.
I heard it was supposed to be horrible, but you loved it?
I freaking love that movie. I think in my little review that I wrote for it, I had said that, it's obviously one of the things that I liked about it was that they kind of played with that idea of we know we're making a remake and we're going to be conscious that we're not trying to ignore the first ones ever happened. So it was kind of a remake, but it was a sequel at the same time. So I kind of like that idea. But there was also a line in it that what's his name there, Helms, the father, Randy? Yeah, he says to the kids, he's like, we're gonna go on a trip, to Wally World or whatever. Was it Wally World? Jesus, I don't even remember. Yeah, I think that was it. So then, and they're like, why would you want to do why would you want to do the exact same thing you did 30 years ago? And he's like, because it's going to be different. He's like, for example, it was me and my sister, and it's you two, your brothers. It was just kind of like that kind of knowing, comedic stuff. That was, and then, they obviously pulled in a lot of nostalgia bits to it. I mean, they had fun with them too, which was kind of they had the girl with the red Ferrari, she shows up, but they played around with this stuff to and they did stuff that you weren't expecting. for a remake, you think a lot of the stuff they would just kind of rehash it, but some of the stuff they started to rehash and then they would kind of go a different way with it, which made me laugh. And they obviously went the more nowadays with the comedy stuff, they went more for the gross out kind of humor and stuff, and I don't know, it just all struck me as hysterical. So yeah, so I don't know. I mean, but would I put that over Star Wars?
Well, let's make it your number. You want to make it your number 5 then, or no?
Well, let's see. Let's do. So, what do I have here out of the ones that I listed? Now that I'm kind of going way off a track here. You know what? Let's just go with that one 5, just because I don't want to take up any more time on that.
All right.
Sure. You're gonna be sorry you asked me on here.
I like you did all this prep work to talk about the Revenant and then Monster Squad 2, but your top 5, you're like, well, I'll just wing it. We'll see what we come up with. So my number 5 then is going to be Room. If you haven't seen Room, stars Brie Larson, who played Abed's girlfriend on Community. She was one of my favorite films from a couple years ago called Short Term 12. And in Room, she plays a woman who's basically she was kidnapped, but I think it was 7 years ago, and she is locked up in this guy's shed behind his house, has a kid by the guy, and she's basically trying to give her son a life and try and make things as normal as possible for him, while also at times trying to figure out how to escape. It is a fantastic film. Brie Larson, so deservedly nominated for an Academy Award. I hope she wins. I really think that this film is really what's going to promote her and kind of to the next level, and she start getting more and bigger roles, because she is just fantastic in this film. She plays this woman. Well, I guess I don't know if she's ever really named, but she's known as Ma, because she's the mother throughout the film. And thankfully, smartly, it doesn't take place entirely in the shed. There's more stuff that happens as well, so you're not suffering through this woman basically being tortured and raped over, and suffering with her while she's in the shed. A bunch of stuff happens as well. I don't want to spoil it for you. All I can tell you, it is a must-see film. So that's my number 5, Room.
All right.
What do you got, Matt?
So I'm going to throw... I just remembered 2 movies that came out that I'm ashamed of myself for not remembering. So I'm throwing out Ant-Man, throwing in Ex Machina as my number 5. Ex Machina is a good film, but we're not going to talk about it. Good movie, check it out, but that's my number 5. But my number 4 is What We Do in the Shadows. This is a New Zealand vampire spoof reality show thing. Absolutely hilarious. It's about a bunch of vampires that live in this house together. It seems to be that vampires are kind of a normal thing. They're completely inept. Just hilarious sight gags kind of playing with the mythology, which is, they seem to have a real affection for, which is really important when you're doing this kind of thing, but it is absolutely hilarious. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. It's a great little film.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, too. Jermaine Clement from Flight of the Conchords is in it as well, if you haven't, but it's a lot of fun. It's very funny. So, yeah, that's a great little pick. Is it still on Netflix? It was on Netflix for a while.
I'm not sure, to be quite honest with you.
Fair enough. Wayne, did you get a chance to see What We Do in the Shadows? I'm assuming no?
Nope, that wasn't one of them.
All right.
So check that out.
Definitely. So do you have a number 4 for us, or just some random movie?
Let me just pick one of the random ones I have here. Yeah, no, I probably already screwed up my list anyway, but let's see. We'll go through, and I would say we'll put Star Wars as 4.
All right.
Put that down on 4. Yeah. With that one, I think a lot of the stuff that I liked about it was the nostalgia bits, and I think like we kind of mentioned before, it's not necessarily the greatest movie. A lot of it was I liked that they tried to not use CGI as much as possible. There were a lot of CGI bits that I did not like, but like I said, I'm super critical of that kind of stuff. But I'm glad that they did build sets and they build ships and all that kind of stuff, and it was definitely a fun thing to watch. But I wasn't immediately, wanting to go watch it right away again, so that kind of drops it down. If I don't really want to go see it, yeah, I got done watching it. I was like, oh, that was cool. And I'm like, yeah, I'll watch it again. And I read more on it. And I actually, after reading more about it, some of the backstory, apparently they came up with like a book that's got like all this descriptions of, like why, Kylo Ren's lightsaber looks the way it does, why it's not like a crisp light beam and it's all jagged, and just a lot of stuff like that. Maybe appreciate it a little bit more, but I still, I mean, it's not going to be one that I watch a million times like the old ones. So yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, I gotta agree that that's actually my 4 as well. Is The Force Awakens, and it's probably bolstered by the nostalgia of them of it just not being a complete train wreck.
Exactly.
I think the key to it too. I think one of the keys to the success of film, like you said, Wayne, was the use of practical effects. They built a scale Millennium Falcon. They did all that stuff. I think that's one of the big strengths of the film, is having a good screenplay too, with dialogue that sounds natural. I think was a big success for the film. I think having humor in the film that sounded natural and not forced and jammed in there, again, great. You're able to identify even with the robot BB-8, a fantastic addition to the franchise. Again, another practical effect. They made it's a puppet. So I think I think absolutely great. Right decision left and right from J.J. Abrams. I loved Kylo Ren. I hope he goes full Darth whatever, even if he's not a Sith. I don't want him getting redeemed, all right? I want him to go total badass. He killed his father, unlike that pansy Luke who couldn't do it. So I think his transfer to the dark side is complete, and I want to see it all the way. I don't want any redemption for Ren. I want to see this get nice and dark, which I'm assuming it won't.
Very good.
But that's my 4 as well. It's Star Wars The Force Awakens. So, Matt, what do you got for 3?
My number 3 is actually Star Wars The Force Awakens. Slightly higher than you guys. You guys have said mostly my thoughts. I mean, it's not perfect. I think the main thing, as Chris said, is that it didn't suck, and that was really the most important thing. I mean, the actors are charming. It has, that great sense of vibe of Star Wars, and it's eminently watchable. The effects are good. The practical effects are good. Even the CGI that's there, it's not jarring. So I think all of that really worked towards it. And honestly, there's 2 scenes in this film, which we talked about them in our spoiler space, but on the film. But I mean, they're probably some of the hardest hitting scenes that last little bit of any of the films in the entire franchise of Star Wars. with Han Solo and Kylo Ren, and then the lightsaber battle, which I thought it was just absolutely beautiful. The way they shot that was just incredibly impressive. Just kind of got the whole samurai in the forest fighting in the snow thing that I thought was a really nice touch how they did that. But, to Wayne's point, I think one of the biggest flaws of it is that you can tell that they left a lot out, and I don't think it was a smart move to kind of answer all these questions and all the tie-in media. I think that was really a bad move on their part, and I kind of wish they would have either left it out or at least maybe alluded to it in throwaway lines or whatever they had to do. But I shouldn't have to go read a comic book or a novel to make sure I get all the backstory I need so the story makes sense. It's my big knock against it.
All right, that's fine. I'll accept that. Wayne, what's your number? Are we 3 now?
I think we're on 3.
All right.
So yeah, see, now it's getting kind of tough because there's a bunch in here that I really liked, and it's kind of tough trying to decide.
I want to point out to you that you are no way held to this in any way or fashion. You could change it in a week, you can change it in an hour. Nothing's going to happen to you. So
Well, if we're going that route, I may switch Spy with Vacation.
All right, fair enough. I've seen Spy, so I think that's probably the better way to go. I really enjoyed Spy. I haven't seen Vacation.
I enjoyed Spy immensely, yeah. So that would actually, yeah.
I watched the unrated version of Spy as well as I actually think the theatrical cut's a better version of the film.
Oh, I haven't seen the unrated yet. No, yeah, okay.
All right. So
yeah, I think I'm gonna have to backtrack on that one and put Spy because I'm looking through these and I'm like, yeah, Spy I definitely would put above Vacation. So that would be my 5. So now we're 3? I think Mad Max would be 3.
Okay.
I think that sounds about right. Let me see. I just want to make sure that I'm not jipping anything here. Yeah, I think that would be it. Mad Max I think would be on there because I really did enjoy it. I had a lot of fun with it, but there wasn't there was a lot of stuff that I had issues with too, but I kind of let it go just because it was so fun. A lot of I remember in my little blurb that I wrote, one of the things that kind of knocked it back on a couple points was I was, just the kind of, this is post-apocalyptic future, and we have, people kind of devolving, which you would understand is going to happen in a society where things kind of fall apart to that extent. But I was like, really? We're going back to talking about Valhalla and all this other stuff? Like, there was just things like that. I was like, they went a little too far on how far back they were willing to go as far as, how bad people had kind of devolved and all that kind of stuff. So it was things like that that kind of bugged me about it, which I think they could have polished up on a little bit. But, other than that, I freaking really enjoyed that movie. That was definitely one that I immediately wanted to watch right again afterwards. I was like, let's just go to the next showing.
Exactly. I think that may be coming up a little bit too for Matt and I. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. So my number 3, I'm going to go with The Big Short, Adam McKay's film. Who would have thought Adam McKay would have a movie nominated for Best Picture? Right, the guy who brought us Anchorman, classic film. Don't get me wrong, but also gave us Semi-Pro. So I just want to say though, it deals with the financial crisis brilliantly. The way how he uses famous people to explain some of the complicated concepts of what brought down the American economy. And then absolutely gangbuster performances, particularly by Steve Carell and Ryan Gosling, then Christian Bale as well, Brad Pitt, and some other people. But I'm telling you, man, Big Short takes a very kind of difficult to understand, dense reading of what happened in 2008 and 2009 and really explains it and is hilarious all at the same time and touching and emotional, sad. It really kind of gets into, too, how people were really impacted. And I think it's interesting because if you saw The Other Guys, which I think is a hilarious film with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg, also directed by McKay, he talks about that at the end of the film. At the end credits kind of goes over some of this stuff, too. So clearly this is a passion of McKay's. But he really gets into this. It's an adaptation of Michael Lewis's fantastic book as well of the same name, The Big Short. And it's to have made this kind of concept, which, let's be honest, some people's eyes just glaze over when you start talking about financial derivatives and mortgage-backed securities. But he made it interesting, heartfelt, and hilarious. Just a success from beginning to end. I can't recommend it enough, and that's why it's my number 3 favorite film of the year, The Big Short.
Very good.
So what do you got, Matt?
All right, so my number 2, this is one that I had forgotten. I had forgotten this movie, and it was my number 2, and I was angry at myself for getting this. Angry, Chris. My number 2 is It Follows. I had forgotten that this movie came out in 2015.
Wait, that did?
Yes, it did. It came out in friggin' April.
Man, my little app is lying to me then.
I forgot too. Son of a... Ooh!
Yeah.
That's in my top 10. That is in my top 10.
So, yeah, number 2, It Follows. Definitely one of the best horror movies I've seen in maybe at least years. Just the tension and just the kind of the way they shoot it. The performances that all the actors give, it's just an excellent horror movie. Not gory, really, except for maybe a scene or two here or there, but everything is built just by the tension of you just constantly looking for that person who's inexorably coming to get the main character. It's a fantastic little film.
Yeah, so it's a 2014 horror film, but it didn't get its U.S. release here until 2015 in March. So It was released in Cannes in 2014, but we go strictly by U.S. release date here. So it is a 2015 film. And that's entirely right. That means something's got to go. I guess it's going to be Creed at number 10. I'm telling you, I'm with you, Matt. That film creeped me out. I remember, Wayne, when I would tell people about that movie, I'd get goosebumps. Just describing it to them. And too, Matt talked earlier about my affection for scores. This is a synth 80s score throwback that is perfect from beginning to end. I loved It Follows. No horror film has creeped me out like this film, and I don't know how long. So, yeah, that is a great pick. I am very angry at myself that I forgot about it as well. I can't recommend It Follows enough. It may even deserve to be higher up than 10 for me. I may have to revisit my entire list now. I liked it that much. Yeah. What about you, Wayne? What are your thoughts about it, Fava?
Yeah, no, I definitely really enjoyed it, and like you said, one of the things that I definitely that stuck out with me when I was watching it was the soundtrack. I mean, the '80s thing. I'm like, most of the movies I've been watching, like I said, so many of the ones I watched, they're from the '70s and '80s kind of a thing. And as soon as I heard the soundtrack and everything, I was kind of like, okay, I'm gonna like this movie. Like, I really, yeah, and I really liked the pacing, and I liked a lot of the just the real. I'm not usually big on slow-paced kind of movies, and this was a slower-paced movie, and a lot of the camera stuff was like that slow rotating, you know, like camera where they would just go around and they would have like in the background you'd see like the you know, you'd see it like there, and then it would be closer in the next way, and that kind of stuff was just I had a blast watching that one. So yeah, I would I don't know if I would put that up in my top 5, but I mean, see, that's the kind of thing too. It's like, how do you rate that against like Spy and other movies like that? You know, they're kind of like a whole different. I
think we just tend to go enjoyment level.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, I mean, I think I really liked it, and I appreciated it, but yeah, I don't know if that would be one that I would, you know, end up watching a whole bunch of times, which is what I'm trying to go by, is like ones that I would actually sit and watch a million times, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point too, because Matt and I actually saw this together. I was in Connecticut when we went to see it at the screening, and the exact same thing happened to me, Wayne. As soon as the first bars of that keyboard of that score happened, I turned and looked at Matt, and then he just started laughing at me. I'm like, and from what I understand too, the score for that's like the demos. He went in with the director and said, "Okay, this is what I'm thinking about," and he goes, "Boom, that's it. That's what we're using. That's what we want."
Nice.
So
that's awesome.
That's good. So what do you got then, Wayne? What's your number 2?
My number 2, I guess, would since we're getting down to it, I would say Ex Machina would be my number 2. I mean, I enjoyed everything about that movie, and like I said, it's another one that was real slow paced. Usually enjoyment factors has to be kind of a higher pace kind of a thing, because I got, you know, the short attention span, all that kind of stuff. So I needed to keep me, you know, sucked in. And that one, I just remember being I just loved the characters and the way they played off of each other, and just especially I already forgot the main guy, but the guy who the genius guy who brings him in there, his character there, that was just the way he played him. Yep. The way he played him was just awesome. I really liked how that turned out. And then, I mean, the special effects and everything, I thought they did a great job on also too. So it was just a really, really interesting story, and creepy in the same time, because you know eventually we're going to get to that point, and you know.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Ex Machina as well. I'll tell you, this was a strong year. I had a hard time cutting some stuff out, and that was a tough decision for me. So I agree. Yeah, that's a good pick. Here's my problem now, gentlemen. My number 1 and my number 2, I keep going back and forth on. I can't seem to make a final decision on which one's the better film for me. So I reserve the right to change my mind at any point. So for right now, my number 2 then is going to be, just for now, for this specific conversation, I'm gonna go Hateful Eight is my number 2.
Okay.
I feel that this is top tier, strong Tarantino for me. He announced that he's working on making this into a play, which I absolutely have to see if that happens. For me, this is vintage Tarantino. The dialogue is there, the interactions there. Sam Jackson just knocks it out of the park in this film. Walter Goggins as well, incredibly strong. It's really their movie. They're the stars of this film. Jennifer Jason Leigh, though, strong as well. Everybody really universally delivers fantastic performances. It's a gorgeous film, though misleading, right? Because he pushes a 70mm thing, but 2/3 of the film take place inside a cabin. So,
well, go ahead.
So, but either way, I'm telling you, it's a fantastic film. If you're a Tarantino fan, you're gonna love it. And unless you're a Django fan, if you think that's the second best film and you hate this, then I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. So, but for me, this I think is Tarantino at the top of his game, and I absolutely loved it. And Ask Me Tomorrow, it could be my number 1 as well. So there you go. All right. So I don't know, Wayne, do you have anything to add, or if it's gonna come up on your list, hold on to it.
We'll go around.
Matt. All right then, Matt. Number 1 film of 2015, which I'm assuming is some type of animated movie.
You're absolutely right. It is SpongeBob SquarePants. No, just kidding. No, what's the movie that we gushed about that we haven't mentioned? Now Wayne has mentioned it, but I I obviously enjoyed it a lot more than he did. Is Mad Max Fury Road. Just this movie has no right to be as good as it actually is, and just by the sheer fact that this thing got made. I mean, we've been talking about Mad Max Fury Road. I've been hearing about this since like the 90s. This thing has been gestating for 20, 30 years. You know, the performances are great. I love the kind of how he's built this kind of Mad Max. He's like a myth. Like it's a story of somebody else. He's traveling through. He's the man with no name traveling through somebody else's story. Just the way they did it, just the visuals, all the just the everything about it is just gorgeous. The practical effects and the friggin' Doof Warrior. I mean, that just does it for me with the guy with the flamethrower guitar on the truck full of amplifiers. Just everything about it. Just the vision of it is just absolutely incredible. It's a great film, and that's one that I can see myself watching over and over and over again for a long, long time.
Yeah, we'll save the audience to suspense too. Clearly, it's my number one as well, and we'll get Wayne. We can talk about yours in a second. But since we're talking about it right now, we might as well. It is. I remember when we first watched the film that there were a couple times it's just like I have never seen that in a movie before. I've never seen that before, and it's the film is rife with moments like that. It's also very empowering. Especially, there's the whole strong female leads, and I love the fact that if you look back too, ever since the Road Warrior. That was the first one, right? I always get that confused.
No, Mad Max.
So Mad Max, or ever since Mad Max, ever since the first film, he's been more the catalyst in the stories to get the. He's not this. He hasn't been the stars of the film. He's been more the driving force of other people's stories, and I've enjoyed that. I think Tom Hardy is a worthy successor to Mel Gibson and his drunk ranting. So I feel like as I said, I go back and forth between this and Hateful Eight, but I think I really had to come down on Fury Road just because of just the ideas that George Miller was able to bring to life in this film just blew me away. And it's endlessly rewatchable for me. I've watched it probably 2 or 3 times since it came out as well. And, I absolutely loved it. So that's my number one as well.
Well, there you go.
So, Wayne, what do you got for us? What's your numero uno? I think I know what it is.
I would have to put Hateful Eight, and I don't know if that's just because that was the most recent one that I've been obsessing over, but that movie, like I said, it was, especially watching the 70mm one with the intermission and all that kind of stuff. Even after all of that, I remember it hit the intermission. I was just like, wait, we're already at the intermission, and then then it ended, and I was just like, that was 3 hours of a movie? There's no way that was 3 hours. It just went by so. Even the second time I watched it, I was just like, I'm like, that movie just flew by, and it was like I could see watching that one over and over and over again, and it's just like there's just so many, the humor in it, and like the brutality of it, and just like there's just so much stuff that you don't expect, in it. I mean, just like it. Yeah, it's definitely going to be my number one of that year. And the thing about the 70mm, like you were talking about, I saw you mentioned that last time, how you were upset, or well, not upset, but you had mentioned how it's mostly in a cabin and it's a 70mm, and it definitely is when you first start and you look and you see how much, especially I don't know, the guy who runs the programming at this theater, when I watched it the second time, he went up and he talked about it beforehand, and he had said something about the one here is an ultra 70mm, so it's supposedly even wider somehow. I don't know what that. I didn't realize that was a thing or whatnot, but they were talking about how they had to have the lens like machined, like because no one could get it, so they had to actually have it made so that they can play this movie and all this stuff. I remember at the beginning, I'm watching it, and you see just the expanse and how much is filling the screen, and you're like, holy Jesus, like you're watching it. And I actually didn't have a problem with it being used in that cabin, because I think I think it's not going to be as effective when you watch it on DVD and stuff, because it's going to be cut down. It's going to be like, if you look, there's one scene where I don't remember the scene on it, but they had the people talking were one end of the screen to the other, and it filled almost the whole cabin, like because it wrapped around so much. So it was such like you're in the cabin, and like if you had like a real small aspect ratio, it would feel really claustrophobic and all that. But in that, you could really play with a lot of stuff without, like closing down or having, like, because I mean, filming in one location, in a whole, especially a 3-hour movie, what it was like 2/3 of it was in the cabin there.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think the 70mm was a good choice on it actually, because it helped spread it out and made it not feel like so closed in. You didn't really, I mean, you don't really even think about how it's all playing out in one cabin. At least I didn't when I watched it. So I don't know. I think this is one of his. He's kind of really figured out what he needs to do, and like, I love Pulp Fiction. It's still never going to beat it's never going to beat Pulp Fiction as like his #1 movie, but it's definitely up there for me. And I can't wait till he does his horror movie, if he really does do that like he's talking about now.
I know. I am intrigued by that whole thing conceptually. I can't wait to see if he actually does do it. I think that'll be fantastic. So that'll be interesting. Yeah, I think it's true, and I'm curious how it's going to end up turning out when it's released on home video. Because he said that this version, the 70mm version, that's it. It's not going to be released again. It won't be on home video. You're just going to get the truncated version. So we'll see if that holds true. Maybe years down the road we'll get it. But we've also been waiting for the whole bloody affair for Kill Bill 2 for, 10 years now? So who knows if that's going to happen.
And the other thing is that, like, I had a friend mention, he said that, and I don't know how it worked out, but it's, I guess with the, you have the intermission, and then after the intermission, they have that, 15 minutes ago, they have the voiceover that goes on and explains what was going on. As far as I know, they keep that in there, which is very jarring because there's no intermission. So I don't know how that works, or if that was, like, I don't know if they keep that in there or how they're going to do that. But if they keep it doing that, I guess it's not going to work very well, and it's not going to be as enjoyable. But I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah, we'll see how he ends up turning it out. That's interesting. All right. It reminded me, though, too, you saying that about that. It reminded me of something about the Revenant that I forgot about, too. I'm curious what you thought about this. Not to totally go backwards now, but the swirling camera Iñárritu has in that film, when we're dealing with Tom Hardy and Leo DiCaprio, how the camera circles them a lot of times too, and then it's a very tightly shot film in some ways. You get these wide expanses when we're looking at the countryside. Then we're focusing on our characters. Man, we're right up in there. I mean, we're like half the time, we're really just in your face. I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting. So I don't know, it just popped in my head. Okay. So some honorable mentions I had, things that didn't make my top 10, was Ex Machina, which you both mentioned, which I really enjoyed. Mr. Holmes, the kind of the last tale of Sherlock Holmes starring Ian McKellen. I really enjoyed that one as well. Trainwreck, Amy Schumer's film, I thought was very funny.
I need to watch that one.
Pixar's Inside Out, another huge success for me for Pixar. Straight Outta Compton did make an honorable mention for me. Bridge of Spies, Tom Hanks, Steven Spielberg. I mean, you really can't go wrong with that. Crimson Peak, I was a little disappointed by that from Guillermo del Toro, but if you watch it in the right mindset as a gothic ghost story instead of the insane horror film I was expecting to get, where you're on the edge of your seat the entire time, that's not what this is. But it's more of as I said, a gothic ghost story. I enjoyed it. And just because I had to put it on here, Spectre, the latest James Bond film, that's just because I'm a Bond fan, so I just had to throw it on there. So, yeah, and Tangerine. Matt, we talked about it a little bit a couple weeks ago about watching it. And I actually saw it. If you're not familiar with Tangerine, this is the one that's filmed, the Duplass brothers produced this. So they filmed it on 2 iPhones and then like an adapter for a microphone about this transgendered prostitute who gets out of jail, finds out her pimp/boyfriend's cheating on her, and she goes to track down the philandering pimp and his cheatee. So, but it's a really interesting look into that kind of lifestyle. It really felt authentic to me. So it's on Netflix right now. If you're into something challenging, but an interesting view into something that I have no experience with, I promise. Tangerine is definitely worth checking out. So those are my honorable mentions. Do you guys have any honorable mentions that we didn't talk about?
No, I mean, I guess Inside Out would be the only thing I would say would be noteworthy of the things I actually even saw this year that we didn't mention.
All right, what about you, Wayne? Is there anything else you wanted to just touch on quickly?
No, I mean, like I said, I didn't have much to choose from. I mean, Ant-Man I kind of liked, but I don't know if I would put that in the... I mean, I guess for the year, since it wasn't many I saw, I guess I would put that up there. But You know, I mean, I had the only other ones I have on here is like No Escape, which I hated, Terminator Genesis, which I hated. So, like, and you know, then I had a bunch of like 3-star ones, which I were just like meh, like Maggie, Sicario, you know, like I really, you know, those, and The Revenant was 3 I gave it to. So, yeah, so there's not a whole lot for me to choose from.
Fair enough. All right, I wanted to talk to you just quickly, just mention who I think the MVP of 2015 was in the movies. I was leaning toward Oscar Isaacs because of Ex Machina and Star Wars and such, but you know what? I'm going to go with Domhnall Gleeson. Here's Domhnall Gleeson's films this year, okay? And this is the son of Brendan Gleeson. He was in Ex Machina, he was in Star Wars, he was in The Revenant, and he was in Brooklyn. And he delivers in each one of these films. Now, I have to confess, I haven't seen Brooklyn yet, hopefully this weekend. But the other 3, though, too, I mean, just knocks it out of the park. If you're not familiar with Domhnall Gleeson, he's the redheaded guy. All right, so in Revenant, he's the captain in general, whatever he is. Star Wars, he's the
General
the
Hux,
grandma
the main guy,
type. And then Ex Machina, he's the guy that shows up to do the Turing test to the android in Ex Machina. So for me, Domhnall Gleeson gets MVP 2015. Absolutely fantastic. Outside of maybe Brie Larson. All right. That's the big show this week, and man, what a show it was! That was
a big show.
That was. Well, that's what happens when you have a guest and you cover 2015 in review. Next week, I don't know what the hell I'm going to talk about next week. We got the Benghazi movie from Michael Bay of all people, so I don't know if we're going to really rush out and see that. I don't know. Maybe we'll talk. Maybe I'll check out Brooklyn. I don't know what the hell's going to happen. Matt, we also got to decide what 80s throwback movie we're going to do next as well. Is it going to be War Games? We don't know yet. We'll figure that out. Maybe it'll be Dark Crystal. Who knows?
That wasn't even on the list, Chris. That's the second time you tried to put that movie on the list.
It's a backup. Oh, you know what we should do? You know what we should do?
What's that?
You know what we should do?
What's that?
Labyrinth. It has to be Labyrinth.
Was that even on the list? Oh, yeah, it was. So, yeah, I think we should, in honor of Mr. Bowie, we should watch Labyrinth.
We have to do Labyrinth.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where it'll be. And then we'll figure the rest of it out. In the meantime, check us out on Facebook and Twitter. Just do a search for The First Run. We're on YouTube as well. And, of course, there's a site, thefirstrun.com. So that's the big show for this week. I'm going to take an extended break. And, Wayne, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. You're welcome anytime, of course.
All right, thank you.
And, Matt, you're just still stuck here. Okay. So we'll see you all in a week. Take care.
All right, thanks. Have a good one.
Nothing is impossible, Mr. Angier. What you want is simply expensive. If I were to build for you this machine, you would be presenting it merely as illusion?
Well, if people actually believed the things I did on stage, they wouldn't clap, they'd scream. I mean, think of sawing a woman in half.
Mr. Angier, have you considered the cost of such a machine?
Price is not an object.
Perhaps not, but have you considered the cost?
I'm not sure I follow.
Go home. Forget this thing. I can recognize an obsession. No good will come of it.
Well, hasn't good come of your obsessions?
At first, but I followed them too long. I am their slave. And one day they will choose to destroy me.